Hey, what is going on, guys? Nathan here with a breakdown of my green-white Selesnya deck. This deck is meant to ramp up into big flyers, as we'll get into a moment. But this is actually my sort of secondary tryhard deck. My first go-to deck is still my blue-green Simic deck, where I try to ramp up into big land creatures, but I try to defend with some blue flyers, whereas this deck is wholly devoted to big flyers that can sometimes be a real pain in the ass if you don't have any sort of flying defense. So this might be a deck where I might run against probably maybe like black, for example, or maybe a fellow green deck, because green doesn't have much defense against flying. So I wanted to just sort of show off this deck. I've spent I've invested to it almost as much as my blue-green deck. My blue-green deck is made up of cards that I have pretty much solely bought, not just got from like from an intro pack or whatever. And this deck is also almost fully customized, and where I bought individual cards. So let's get into this deck. Now, at the top here is actually all of my land separated. It's not really too much, like, it's not really that big of a deal in terms of the entire deck, but I'll just go over it really fast. We have about, I would say about half green, half plains here. We've got 3 Blossoming Sands, which is just a simple life gain dual land. When Blossoming Sands enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life, add green or white to your mana pool. So it's a very nice dual land. And then we've got a 1 foil Grey Pelt Refuge, and then 3 more there. And it is the same thing. When Grey Pelt Refuge enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life, and then it is also a green-white dual land. Now, this makes for a total of, I believe, 21 land, if I remember correctly, either 21 or 20, because my mana ramp pretty much functions as land in itself, which we'll actually get into here. So, I have 7 mana ramp cards in this deck. We've got 4 Farseeks, which Farseek is just a simple card that allows you to play a basic land of your choice, either a plains, forest, a swamp, or an island card. So, pretty much rampant growth, but just a different name. We've got an actual rampant growth, which also allows me to play an additional land. Not play an additional land, but search for land in my deck and then play it on the field. And then I've got 1 Kodama's Reach. Now, if I wanted to actually get my best random mana ramp in this deck, I would run more Kodama's Reaches, because it's a 3 cost that gives 2 land, which is way more efficient than these cards, which is a 2 cost for 1 land. But all of my Kodama's Reaches are pretty much invested into my blue-green Simic deck, so I was only able to save 1 for this deck. And then last of all, we've got a 4-cost Seek the Horizon, which is to basically search for 3 basic land cards and put them into my hand. So I guess it's a good early to late game mana ramp card. If I want more, if I need to bail myself out of being land dry, sort of, so to speak. But Seek the Horizon, like 4-cost, higher cost mana ramp cards, I'm not really a fan of, because typically, when you're that into the game anyway, where you can afford like 4 costs, I'll pretty much always want to be spawning, creatures. Like, I mean, for a 4 cost, instead of playing a Seek the Horizon, I could actually play like a Indomitable Ancients, a Healer of the Pride, a Tree of Redemption, or even like a Loxodon Smiter. Pretty much all of these cards I could play instead of Seek the Horizon. But I don't know. I just tend to like these really lower cost mana ramp cards that are like a 2 cost or even like a 3 cost for Kodama's Reach. To me, Kodama's Reach is pretty much the best green mana ramp card there is, because you simply just get 2 land. So it's 1 on the field tapped and then 1 into your hand for a 3 cost. And to me, that's just so awesome. It's one of my favorite mana ramp cards. So being I have mana ramp covered, we have separated my creature cards then into low cost and high cost in this sort of typical video fashion. This column of cards is a 4 cost and under, and then this column of cards is a 5 cost and higher. So what I have here is 4 Loxodon Smiters for a 3 cost. Now, Lockstone Smiter is one of my favorite cards because it is possibly one of the most efficient cards in the game. It's a 3-cost for a 4/4. This card cannot be countered, and if a spell or ability would cause me to discard this card, I would put it on the battlefield. So the main ability that I'm concerned with here is its first ability. It can't be countered, so this is a good card to play against a blue deck. And besides, like, obviously, it's straight up efficient. It's a 4/4 for 3, and that is insane efficiency in Magic. So I've got 4 of those in this deck, and then I've got 2 Trees of Redemption, which Tree of Redemption is an 0-13 defender, and basically I can tap it to swap my life with its toughness. So let's say I'm down to 5 life, for example. I'll just pull it out, I guess. Let's say I'm down to 5 life. I can actually tap this card. It is a mythic, by the way. I can tap this card and then swap my life total with this toughness. So this can become now an 0-5, and I actually gain, or rather, I go up to 13 life. And for some reason, if I wanted to, if their opponent has some ridiculous card, I could even swap the 13 toughness. If I had like 20 life, for example, I could swap my life total with this toughness to block some insane creature. For example, like if they happen to have like a World Spine Worm, for example, I can just straight up block that with my Tree of Redemption. But there is little to no chance that would happen, or I would even do that. But then we move on here to, I have 3 Indomitable Ancients. So another very defensive card. It's basically just a 2/10 for 4. And this is one of my favorite white cards because you can still attack with it, and it's basically unkillable because of its insane toughness. And it's all for a 4-cost. So I would honestly rather put one of these on the battlefield than a Tree of Redemption, just because this thing is a little bit more versatile, even if it doesn't have that life swapping ability. And then we'll go on to here. My final low-cost card is a Healer of the Pride. So when I play this, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under my control, I gain 2 life. And I've been able to save my own ass because of this card multiple times. So this is always a good card to have. But I'm not actually including more than one of them in my deck. Maybe I'll try, well, maybe I'll include one more of them and swap out one of these higher cost cards for another Healer of Pride, because that's just such a good card. And if you can get 2 of them even onto the field, that's pretty devastating. But then we go into our high cost cards. Now, as you'll notice, almost all of these, actually, except for one, are flyers. So I did that on purpose, because flyers, like, if you can get a nice army of flyers going, there's only a few colors that can block decently against flyers, and that's pretty much decks or colors also with flyers. So typically, like this like having a lot of flyers would be good against like green, black, or like red if they don't have a lot of dragons. But it'd be a little bit like tougher, I guess, to go against like a blue or a fellow white deck, because blue and white tend to have a lot of flyers themselves. But here we've got, I have 4 of these in my deck. This is the Serra Angel. For a 5-cost, I get a 4/4 flyer with vigilance. So just pretty much like not like a standard card, but it's nothing too special on that card besides its vigilance ability, which I'll definitely take. Vigilance is, it's nice. It's not like a game stopper, but it's nice. And then I have 4 Aegis Angels in my deck here. So this is a 6-cost 5/5 flyer. And basically what it does is whenever it enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as I control Aegis Angel. So obviously this is good for making my own creatures indestructible. In addition to, if I have, I could use this even on an enemy's permanent, because it doesn't say another target permanent you control. So for whatever reason, if I wanted to make an enemy's card indestructible, then I could do that. But obviously it's best to basically protect my own stuff. And then we've got Serif of the Masses. I've got 2 of these babies in my deck. This is a 7-cost Convoke card, so I can use my own creatures to help limit this colorless mana. So basically, if I have, I have 2 Lockstone Spiders on the field, for example, I can tap those, and then this would only be a 5-cost. So definitely, it's nice to have Convoke, but once again, it's not one of those game stopper abilities, but it does make this card cheaper. And basically, this is a flyer. This is a flyer, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures I control. So this is a good card because white and green both separately tend to have a lot of creatures on the board. So if you combo the Convoke ability with these sort of number of creatures, it kind of synergizes with itself pretty decently. And I have 2 of those in my deck, so I chose obviously not to include more because I feel like it's not really that worth it to have more of those. It's more of kind of a situational card, and I would rather have, for example, more Aegis Angels or Serra Angels on the board than a Serif of the Masses. And then last year we have an Armada Worm card. Now this is kind of typical green. It basically is a 5/5 trample, and when it enters the battlefield, I get a 5/5 green creature token with trample as well. So basically 2 5/5s with trample for a 6 cost. Definitely a very good card, very efficient card. And having that trample, like I would even run this card even if the creatures and the token that I spawned didn't have trample. So that's how good this card is. So yeah, that's pretty much my high cost creatures, in addition to my low cost creatures. Sorry, I'm straightening out some of these columns because of my OCD. I don't actually have OCD, but it's just a whatever saying. Anyway, so then we go into our little support spells, and most of these are actually enchantments. So first of all, we have a Shield of the Avatar here. I'm running 2 of these. Basically, this is an artifact equipment for 1 cost, but I have to equip it for 2. And it says, if a source would deal damage to an equipped creature, prevent X of that damage, where X is the number of creatures you control. So, for example, if I had a Serra Angel out on the field, which is a 4/4, and then I happen to have 3 creatures on the field, and I equip this to the Serra Angel, that Serra Angel, for all purposes, is now a 4/7, which is definitely a good card, and this is... You know, it's only for a 3 cost, because I can play it for 1, and then even like next turn, if I have the mana, then I can actually equip it for another 2. So I can spread out that 3 cost if I want. So this is definitely a good card, and hence why it is rare. Now, so we go to instance here, and first of all, we'll start with the Advent of the Worm. So this is a 4-cost card that basically puts another 5/5 green worm creature token with trample onto the battlefield. So this is very much similar to Armada Worm, except that for 2 less mana, I actually get just 1 5/5 token on the battlefield instead of having 2. So it's a little bit, I mean, that's kind of the difference between this rare card and this mythic card, is that for 2 more, for 2 more mana, you basically get another 5/5 creature with trample. So I'm thinking about actually ordering another Armada Worm and tossing out Advent of the Worm, but I'll see depending on how expensive that card is. And then we've got, I'm running 2 Swords to Plowshares here, and this card is basically just a murder spell, but with a little twist. So if I play this, I can exile a target creature, and then the controller of that creature will gain life equal to its power. Now, so there's a little bit of a trade-off with this card. First of all, I could use this on my own card, for example. If I desperately need life or something, I could exile, I don't know, like an Aegis Angel or something, which I would never do, by the way, because it's more valuable to have it on the field. But if I wanted to, I could then gain 5 life and exile that card. But what I would rather use this for is to exile one of the enemy's big creatures. So even though the controller of, okay, so let's say I wanted to exile a Terra Stomper, like, because I'm facing a green deck, I would rather have them gain 8 life and have that card out of play than have that card in play and have to deal with it. So this card is good in that sense. You can, like, I definitely feel that it's worth it to get rid of that 8/8 guy. Or even, for example, like, if you had just an absolutely stupid creature on the board, like a Worldspine Worm, for example, I'd rather have them gain 15 life than have to, like, continually fight that creature. And I feel like this is just sort of a faster way of getting that guy off the field. Now, what was I going to say? So this would also be good against, like, a black Death Touch deck, for example. Let's say you have, like, a 1/1 Death Touch on the field. This card would even maybe be worth it because the opponent would gain 1 life, and I would also get rid of that Death Touch. So it's a little bit better against, like, black, for example. And, like, so I actually had a match in the past where my Indomitable Ancient, which was that 2/10, had become stab wound. So it was a 0-10, and basically every single upkeep I would lose 2 life. So this card would be useful in that situation because I could exile my own Indomitable Ancients. I'll gain 0 life, but I'll get rid of that stab wound. So that would be a very useful investment. And that's why I'm using 2 of these cards, because although they may be a little bit situational, it's better to have than to not have, in my opinion. And then we'll move on to the enchantments here. I'm running 3 Battle Masteries, which is a 3-cost enchant creature for double strike. So I've actually won a game by enchanting an Aegis Angel, and basically my opponent didn't have any flying defense. So basically I was swinging for 10 for an unblockable 10 every single turn, and this card is very good. Because Double Strike is pretty awesome. It also defeats like a Death Touch, so once again, good to run against black, which I actually despise black in Magic, so that's always nice. And then we'll go into Arrest. I'm running 1 Arrest card. Basically, this card just exiles target, or not exiles target creature. It'll enchant creature, and this creature cannot attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So basically, if you just arrest a creature, it doesn't do anything. So very similar to Swords of Plowshares, it basically takes a creature out of off the board unless they have some sort of enchantment removal spells. But this is just nice to have to get rid of those big guys. And then we've got Banishing Light, which does which does the same thing. It'll exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. So basically, for all intents and purposes, the same card as Arrest, but just with a different name. And then last of all, I'm running 2 Hopeful Eidelons. Now, this is a 1/1 enchantment creature. I can bestow it for a 4-cost onto another, is it another permanent or another, yeah, just a creature. So for a 4-cost, I can actually give another creature lifelink and also give it +1/+1. Now, I'm actually in the process of replacing these 2 cards with the card Lifelink, which is just a white card. For a 1-cost, it literally just gives a card Lifelink. So basically, that'll just be a straight-up upgrade from this card, which is a 4-cost. The only thing I'm losing by basically taking away that extra 3-cost is I'm losing that +1/+1 ability. But definitely always nice to have Lifelink in your deck. Lifelink can be a savior. It is, I mean, it can very heavily influence the tide of the match if you're just gaining like a retarded amount of health every turn. And I managed to, I mean, I've managed to enchant my Loxodon Smiter with a hopeful Eidolon before, so that was basically a 5/5 swinging like every turn. I just always gain that much life, and that definitely basically won the match for me in one of my most recent matches. So that is pretty much this white and green deck. It's not quite my go-to deck right now. It needs a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like my green-blue deck could beat this deck just because it can ramp a lot faster to those bigger creatures. The only thing is that like it can't defend against the flyers of this deck, and that is kind of what I'm banking on if I ever use this deck, is like my opponent not having very much flying defense. But even if they do, I've like still just ramping up to those big creatures is such an invaluable ability of green. And I think like if you're not running green, you know, you're almost losing out on extra pace of play that you could have, so to speak. I'm not really sure how to explain that, but it's like giving up green ramp for like if you're running for if you're running, for example, a mono black, to me, like, giving up green ramp is just not worth it, because like black, for example, is a relatively expensive color, and who might be running a lot of ramp in one of my green decks might just be able to basically outpace you by spawning bigger creatures than you'll be able to. So yeah, so I'm basically just running green ramp, white flyers, with a couple of green creatures here, for example, my Tree of Redemption and the Loxodon Smiters, and obviously the Advent Worm and the what is that? Advent of the Worm, or wait, what is this then? Oh, Armada Worm, my bad on that name. But yeah, I'm just a huge fan of this deck. This is just always just a fun deck to kind of play with because of all of its flyers. It's good to really test people's defense against flying. And I think, I don't know, that's just kind of one of the funner aspects of this deck. And I think this will be where I wrap up the video, guys. So thank you all for watching. As always, if you could leave a rating on the video, it's much appreciated. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And I will see you all later.